I mean, every company has a culture, and it's either going to evolve randomly or intentionally.
Right.
And that's really the question here is when we work with organizations and we try to help them have a better culture to move the needle on their business performance, you've got to move from randomness to intentionality, right? If you want to claim that value, you have to be clear on what's the baseline and what would better look like. And you need to be able to describe that in attitudes and behaviors in order to move in that direction.
Welcome to the BetterCulture Podcast, where we make the clear connection between better culture and better business. This podcast is for leaders who want to build stronger teams, drive thriving companies, and enjoy your leadership role along the way. Now here's your host, Brett Hoogeveen, a leadership and culture aficionado, keynote speaker, and co-founder of BetterCulture.
Hello and welcome back to the BetterCulture Podcast. We're excited to dive into a topic that is absolutely core to everything that we do at BetterCulture, which is why the heck does company culture matter? And I'm excited to have my buddy, my colleague, our in-house leadership guru, Kevin Hensel here. And Kevin and I are going to have a chat about what the heck company culture is worth, what the value is, and why people should care. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Brett. Great to be back.
Yes, absolutely.
Great to be back. And you're absolutely right? I mean, obviously it's in our name, but this is at the very core of the work that we do and how we support organizations. And we have worked with literally hundreds of organizations wanting to build, maintain, move the needle around their culture. Mm-hmm. But so frequently, they have a hard time identifying, well, what is it? I was just working with a client last week who I very obviously could identify some very specific things that spoke to their culture just in my brief engagement with them. But yet they had a very difficult time describing to me what their culture was. So First question for you, let's just dive into what the heck is culture?
Sure. Well, what is it? And then I want to talk more. This whole episode is going to be about the value. Is it valuable and how and why? But what is it? Culture is how your people show up. It is our best definition, which is a little bit academic, but our best definition is really, it's the attitudes and the behaviors that a group of people come to expect from one another. So when you think culture, it really has to be action-oriented and behavior-oriented if you're going to describe what a culture looks like. So simple things like, smile is something that it's visual. Everybody knows what that looks like, and it actually can help describe a culture, right? Whereas certain things like communication, it's not as visceral, it's not as visual. If you have a core value that says things like, well, we have integrity here, I think those things are less useful for describing what culture is, because it's, even though I suppose that could be a little bit of a behavior is to show up with integrity or to communicate, it's not as clear as some other descriptors that my favorite organizations that describe their culture in more action-oriented terms have.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It is around that behavior, right? But so frequently folks refer to their culture as potentially their core values that are oftentimes respect and teamwork and integrity. But what are the behaviors? What do people do to prove that those things are happening? So therein lies the challenge of what is culture, right?
Yeah. What differentiates one organization from another? And do you have role models that, if every company, if people just show up and do their job, well, you sort of have a random culture, right? If you don't have a set of behaviors that you model that make working in your entity or your organization sort of uniquely you, then I would say you're leaving a lot of cultural potential value on the table.
Right. And again, those things like respect, teamwork, loyalty, et cetera, very important. Mm-hmm. But it's even more important to be able to have some standard behaviors that say, these are the things that you do to prove that these concepts are important to us.
Yeah, right? And culture either evolves randomly. I mean, every company has a culture, and it's either going to evolve randomly or intentionally.
Right.
And that's really the question here is when we work with organizations and we try to help them have a better culture to move the needle on their business performance, you've got to move from randomness to intentionality, right? If you want to claim that value, you have to be clear on what's the baseline and what would better look like. And you need to be able to describe that in attitudes and behaviors in order to move in that direction.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned the value and the value of culture, the value of intentional culture. So frequently, folks in business oftentimes will equate culture with, well, that's maybe not our highest priority, or yeah, it would be good to have. All right. We, of course, take a completely different stance in, no, it needs to be a top priority because of the value of culture. So will you speak to that, of where the connection is between the value of culture and business outcomes and success?
Yeah. This is a big topic for me, Kevin, as you know. And it's because so many people have this mistaken impression that culture is sort of squishy. It's kind of a feel-good topic. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. If we're not too busy, maybe we could do something to invest in culture, or et cetera. And that is just the absolute wrong mindset to have here. Culture is a ever-present business advantage that organizations who have people who like their job, are committed to their company, have functional, enjoyable relationships with their colleagues, every single day are delivering a better experience for customers, higher quality, increases in productivity, et cetera. And I brought even a few statistics today, if we want, that I can share from very reputable global thinkers that are proving the value of this culture.
Absolutely. Well, and in fact, you were just a guest on a different podcast sharing some of those statistics, and I believe that the host of that podcast called you one of his favorite guests. So,
well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, but I think it was because you brought so much to the table to prove a topic that he was very passionate about as well, is the impact and the value of culture. So let's hear some of this bottom line stats to make culture tangible for those folks who might be leaning a little more towards the, well, is it really necessary standpoint?
Well, just so you know, I've got about 12 or 15 very specific examples that I am not going to go into, all of them on this podcast, but in ways that very clearly deliver financial value to organizations, okay? And so before I give you these boring but really important statistics, I'll just mention a few of the types of things that we see all the time. From our clients, we see certainly increases in customer satisfaction when they improve their culture. And we're going to dive into that later, I know. We see increases in quality. We see increases in performance. We see increases in revenue growth. We see increases in lots of great things. We also see decreases. Now this, you need a little larger sample size, but you see decreases in expenses, decreases in waste, decreases in risk, right? Measurable differences in things like obviously turnover costs. That's a big one that you hear talked about all the time. But there is very convincing data out there that shows safety standards will go up when you have an engaged workforce. People care about one another. They care about their personal safety, which decreases workers' compensation costs, liability costs. It decreases in wasteful spending. Group health insurance carriers, when people have a high engagement culture, they often have to put less into the pot each year to self-fund their group health because people are more responsible with the company's dollars. I mean, there are all sorts of things that drive revenue up and hold expenses down that come directly from culture. And that's literally the definition for value when it comes to financial metrics in business, is the difference between revenue and expenses, right? Your earnings on an annual basis. And if you can increase your net revenue, that's literally the creation of value in a business.
Absolutely.
I didn't give you the statistics yet, though, did I?
No, you did not. But you're aware, our listeners are not necessarily, but I was a BetterCulture client before I became part of the BetterCulture team, and certainly focused on culture, utilizing some of our curriculum. I experienced those exact same things, right? Of our employee engagement measured through our annual survey went up. Our turnover went down. It when you are intentional and focused, you get those bottom line results.
Yes.
That are not fluffy and squishy by any means.
Yeah, I love it. Here are the 3 stats that I brought with me out of 100 that I could have brought. But Harvard Business Review says that, quote, happy and engaged employees are 31% more productive than disengaged peers. 31% more productive. Show me a business where that doesn't move the needle.
Right.
31% more productive. Okay, that's basic. Deloitte, in a study with the University of North Carolina, showed that highly engaged employees, again, these are organizations that have a healthy culture, drive over 2 times the revenue growth in businesses. 2 times the revenue growth. And lastly, from Gallup, teams in the top quartile, so the top 25% of employee engagement, achieve 23% higher profitability compared to those in the bottom quartile. Now, I know a few of those stats are a little bit overlapping, but directionally, we're talking 20, 30%, all the way up to 200% change in financially oriented metrics when you have a healthy culture.
Right.
Yeah. So I know it moves the needle, and everybody intuitively knows that culture moves the needle. But what I find is very few people can draw a direct enough line between culture and financial performance that gives them enough confidence to say, you know what, we really should be steadily investing in this. We really need to make this a strategic priority for the business and dedicate both budget and a certain amount of our attention to making sure that this is a great place to work.
Yeah. Well, and it's a natural leap, and it may seem obvious, but I want to be sure that I give you an opportunity to draw the connection between engaged employees, right, and these statistics that you're referencing, right? So 2 times increase in revenue and higher engagement, but talk about how that immediately equates into the customer experience.
Yeah. Well, let's do that by maybe talking about a few companies that we engage with that we are satisfied customers of.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Good.
So you get one in mind and I'll get one in mind. And
right.
we'll just talk a little bit about how culture bleeds over into customer experience. Mm-hmm. Now, anyone that I guess knows me or has stopped by our office or has looked through my pantry at my house would very quickly figure out that I'm a very loyal Costco customer, okay? And Costco has created a very healthy culture. When you go in there, I mean, you see very engaged employees that are hustling around, that are greeting people, usually talking to people, et cetera. And it's been well documented that people like to work there. They've been progressive on wages. They really work hard to create great career opportunities and job opportunities for their employees. I experience that when I go in there. I very distinctly remember, this is many years ago, but there was something that I was purchasing and I was going through the checkout line and I think it was bagels, you know? And I got up to the front and I had 1 package of bagels. And the way their pricing works there is you basically get 2 packages of bagels for that price, and you can't just buy 1 package, you have to get the other, right? And you can, but you're paying for 2. And so the person said, "Oh, you didn't know that?" And they said, "What other kind would you like?" And I said, "Just another one like that." And they just took off running to the back of the store. And I was like, "What's going on here?" And before I got through the checkout line, they brought me another package of bagels, you know, and we're like, "There you go, sir. Have a great day." And there are just very few shopping experiences where you get people that are that attuned to making sure people have a good experience in their store, right? And so I'm a very loyal and very satisfied shopper at Costco and probably always will be. And part of that's because they have great selection and they have great quality and they have great employees, et cetera. But culture certainly influences that.
Yeah, yeah. And what a great point, right? That you shop there for one reason is great selection, right? Mm-hmm. Wide aisles, right? Kind of all of those.
Their carts run smooth, you know, like, I mean, that's all those
kind
things.
of those more business strategy, right? Yeah. But on top of that, you keep coming back because the experience that you're having through the customer service. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear yours in a second, but I want to make sure I make this point for our listeners. The only reason that I have such a great experience at Costco, they produce very high quality products and services and experiences for their customers. That is a very high quality experience. My cart runs great. It's always in good shape. Everything is always, clean and tidy and fresh. And you cannot create a high quality customer experience without really engaged people, right? If you had disengaged people, stuff would be dirty, stuff would be cluttered, things wouldn't be efficient. They wouldn't constantly be opening up new lines if they just had employees saying, I'm on my break, I'm not gonna do that, right? My experience would suffer if they didn't have this incredibly engaged workforce, right? Yeah. And so there's a direct correlation between, you can't have a high quality experience without great people. And the thing that gets you those great people that wanna show up and do their best every day is the culture that you put them in, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so true. So true.
All right. So what's if you had to name an organization, some organization that you do business with that has a great culture and why? What's the connection?
You bet. So immediately I think of Chick-fil-A.
The chicken sandwich. Yes.
And they, right. They've got
the special sauce.
They've got that reputation.
Yeah.
But when I boil it down to Chick-fil-A it's fast food, right? Mm-hmm. Just like any other fast food restaurant. Mm-hmm. However, the quality of their food is good as well. But I would say that the quality of food potentially is good at other fast food restaurants. For me, it is that whole experience, however, right? What's the difference between the culture and the experience in Chick-fil-A that I know is going to be consistent every time, right? And ties into my own values as well,
right?
Versus another fast food restaurant where I kind of get what I get every time I go, right? Yeah. There isn't necessarily consistency in the experience.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's that awareness that Chick-fil-A has set very intentionally some standards and expectations by which the way people who work at Chick-fil-A are going to engage with each other and with the customer.
So I don't know about the Chick-fil-A that you frequent, but the one that's nearest my house has a double drive-through lane. And it is busy a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's hot, when it's cold, etc., they have team members with order iPads outside taking orders, separate from just the squawk box you talk into that are out. Is that how it is at your Chick-fil-A as well?
It is. Yeah. Double lane, right?
Yeah. And they're working down the line to get people's orders taken quicker so they can have faster throughput. Right? So they can create a more efficient experience. And I guess one of my questions would be, how many other fast food restaurants do you think if they told employees, hey, could you go do a hour or 2 hour shift out in the sun or out in the cold with an iPad, taking people's orders so we can get more people through? How many other organizations do you think their employees would say, absolutely, sure, I'll jump, like whatever you need, versus let's just kind of take the orders as they come through the radio and we'll just deliver the food, right?
Right.
I think very few of those other restaurants would have employees that would be willing to go above and beyond in that way to create a better experience, right? Yeah. And that all comes from culture.
Right. And we'll talk about this in more depth in another episode, I'm sure. But our leadership loop, right? I think about this conversation and how many of the points within our leadership loop we've already covered, right? That you've got quality staff, and this is what we're talking about from a culture standpoint. Is strong cultures are going to attract high quality staff, right? That then engage in high quality work standards. Going back to my Chick-fil-A example, it's funny because when I leave Chick-fil-A, I never stop and check the bag to make sure my stuff is in there, right? There's such a level of trust.
Yeah.
Whereas in other times, I'm like, I'm not driving away from here until I know what I ordered is really in the bag.
True, yes.
Right?
It's the bag check metric.
Yeah. So high work standards, right? That we're going to make sure this customer's order is right, using that example, which then creates these loyal customers, right?
That is a great example. I love it.
Your Costco experiences, right? This loyal Costco, right? Loyal Chick-fil-A, whatever the case may be, right? So you create then the raving fans who are talking about their friends. We're talking about it right here, right? So then you create this solid reputation within the industry, within the community, which just continues to drive more and more business, right?
Yes.
And more business attracts then the opportunity to hire quality staff and be much more selective, and the loop just continues.
Absolutely.
But that happens through the intentionality that you started with around culture.
100% agree. Yeah. Last thing I want to say when it comes to this idea of making sure that we draw the link between customer satisfaction, right, and culture is I had a chance recently to visit with someone who is heavy in the net promoter score space, right? And if our listeners know what a net promoter score is, essentially asking a single question usually that figures out how satisfied customers are, right? And that question is usually something like, would you recommend our product or service to your friends? Okay. And that one question captures a significant amount of how satisfied people are with a business, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the reason that so many companies do a net promoter score question is because the research and the literature is very clear that there is a link between satisfied customers and business performance. If you're creating satisfied customers, that is a leading indicator to financial performance, right? So if you show me this quarter that we have excellent and increasing customer satisfaction, next quarter, I will show you revenue growth, right? Like those two things are linked, right? And that exists. Well, this person, he shared with me in the net promoter score arena, fewer people use this, but there's actually an employee net promoter score question, which is basically, would you recommend this as a great place to work, right? And what he said is what gets less frequently reported is that data is just as clear between that. If you have employees saying this is a great place to work, there's a correlation, a positive correlation between will you have happy customers? So there's a link between do the employees say this is a great place to work, and do customers say I like this, I would recommend this business, right? Which makes the employee net promoter score, which is culture, right? Is the health of a culture. That's a leading indicator for customer satisfaction. And then customer satisfaction is a leading indicator of financial performance, right? Yeah. Which is exactly the same concept of that leadership loop that you just described.
Yeah. It all just links and corresponds to each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this episode, I don't want to miss a chance to make sure that everybody hears, and that all ties to revenue growth, to financial performance in a predictable way.
Right.
So love it.
Well, and I'm going to go back to that intentionality that we talked about at the very beginning, right? Of not just crossing your fingers, hoping the culture evolves into something that's positive and something that as a leader you like, right? But either starting out on the front end or recognizing at some point we need to make a shift and being very intentional around what do we want this to look like.
Yeah. Do we want improved financial performance? Do we want happier customers? Do we want, which is the very last thing I want us to transition to for this episode, in addition to financial performance and customer satisfaction, I want to talk about, do we want better quality of life as leaders in our business, right? So that's the last of these three big pieces that I want to talk about, where the value of culture comes from. What do you think?
Let's go there.
Let's go?
Yeah.
All right.
How does, as a leader in an organization, how does culture make my world better?
Well, my father, who most people, if you're listeners to this podcast, you know that my father, Kim Hoogeveen, is one of our partners here at BetterCulture and was a very successful executive in an organization that was year after year best place to work. And what he always said as CEO of the organization he led is he said, man, being CEO is a great job when you have happy customers and happy employees. You know, he says every day I'm sort of getting credit for leading an organization and producing an outcome that I didn't even know we were doing. You know, like I'm getting credit for all the good things that are happening, the positive customer experiences, the positive outcomes, and the happy people, et cetera. And he said, that is a great job, selfishly, to be the CEO of a company that's a great place to work with really happy customers. It just feels good, and you're getting credit for all kinds of great things happening. On the flip hand, on the other side, being the CEO of a company that has unhappy customers and dysfunctional, upset, frustrated, antagonistic employees is a really lousy job, right? Right. Being the leader of a company with a lousy culture, or even a team, right? Forget CEOs. If you manage a team of 3 people, right? And they're happy, engaged, positive, trusting, you know, they're committed. When you ask something, they try to make it better. They go above and beyond. That's a great job, right? Selfishly, from a quality of life perspective, it's awesome to lead a team of engaged people because there's less friction. You're getting more done. You don't have to walk on eggshells. There's less stress. It's a better quality of life to lead a team with a really healthy culture. When you flip that around, I don't know if you have any stories, but I don't know. You tell me what's your experience been, Kevin, on just personal quality of life in working in and especially leading teams or organizations that have either really healthy or really unhealthy cultures.
Yeah. Well, and I will share either both the working in and leading. My indicator as to where do we stand from an engagement standpoint, a quality standpoint, is that Sunday night anxiety or not, right?
Yeah.
Here we go again tomorrow morning, right?
Yes.
Versus, wow, okay, I cannot wait to get in tomorrow because I can't wait to engage with the people that I get to engage with and do the work that I love doing, right? Versus, here we go again, right? I'm going to put off going to bed because that means when I wake up, I got to go into work, right?
I'm with you.
It is, again, so important. And I think so natural when you think about it intentionally that the two coincide for the individuals, right? That if you've got a great work environment and you're excited about the people that you get to engage with, you're excited about the work that you get to do, you come home at the end of the day and you've had a great day, well, more than likely, that's going to bleed over into having a great interaction with your loved ones, your pets, whatever
Absolutely.
the case may be, right? So right, I just love the holisticness, if you will, of the impact of this intentionality.
Yeah. And even just being more specific, I like to increasingly ask audiences when I'm speaking, what would having a great job be worth to you? What's the actual dollars and cents value to you in your life? If you were picking between a job that was low stress, high impact, that you felt like you had great relationships with your team, like you felt you had a trust with your manager, you were connected to the mission, you felt excited to go into work on Monday, what's that worth to you?
Yeah.
Right? What is that actually worth? And I've been asking people, fill out a survey, do a doodle poll, give me feedback on what that is actually worth. And the numbers are sort of staggering. It's a no-brainer for many, many people to say, if I'm choosing between this type of job or that type of job, it's worth a few $1,000s a year, a few tens of thousands of dollars a year. And increasingly, Kevin, what I am hearing from a significant portion of the population is there's kind of no amount of money that would incentivize me to take a job that's going to make my life no fun, stressful, that's going to cause me anxiety, stress, physical, impacts on my health. And it's interesting, if you're working in or if you're leading a company that has an unhealthy culture, there's a significant segment of the population that is out of your employment reach. Like there's a significant part of if you're trying to recruit people, there's a segment of the population that says, I'm not working there. Right. Because culture matters to me, right? And I hope and I want to see that segment of the population keep growing and growing and growing, such that there's more and more pressure on organizations to say, we got to prioritize culture if we want to attract and motivate and keep people.
Right.
And
again, right? Without the people, nothing else gets done.
Right. So people, ask yourself that question. What is culture actually worth to you? What is enjoying your job really worth to you? And you might be surprised what the answer is, right?
Well, I'm old enough to have had several work experiences, and I can tell you I have been involved in both, right? In those environments where, okay, I've got to make a change.
Yes.
And those environments of, wow, I cannot wait to get back there again and be able to engage. So
love it. Well, I think to maybe wrap this episode, the big question that I want people to consider, either for themselves personally or for their organizations, is understanding that there's tremendous value in this idea of healthy company culture. The question is, how much value are you leaving on the table? Personally, in quality of life, value from a customer impact perspective, or value from a bottom line perspective? What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, great topic, deep topic, could have gone so many other places. And I know we will in future episodes. So we will continue to unpack culture and leadership as we go on.
Love it. Thanks for joining me. For anybody still sticking with us, we're just getting rolling on the Better Culture Podcast. We would love you to help spread the word. Subscribe on whatever channels you find us on. Rate us. Tell your friends. Give us ideas for what we should do to focus on the podcast. We would love any of those kinds of things. Thanks for being here.
Very good. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks.
Culture matters.
Culture matters. Want to take the next step to building a stronger culture? We're offering a free 15-minute Better Culture strategy call directly with me. We'll take the time to help you identify real opportunities to make your workplace better. No sales pitch, just real advice to help you lead better. Grab your time right now at betterculture.com/free call. Let's make something even better together.